And now,
from South Africa's economic heart, this is the Sandton Times Hour with your host,
Alexander.
A warm welcome wherever you find yourself. This is the Sandton Times Hour, edition 241, week 18 of 2026. I'm Alexander Leipner, and if you're listening for the very first time, it'd be good to hear from you, like we did from Mbui on the WhatsApp line. And I think it's the first time Mbui sent us a message, so thank you to you. He sent us a heart emoji, which I think is a good thing, and a man of few words. So if you're a regular listener as well in Sandton, South Africa, or somewhere across the globe, be it online or on air, chilly wishes from what we call Sandton land, as temperatures have taken a bit of a turn towards the winter months. I think we're definitely heading well into autumn and then into the colder months in South Africa. As we do every single week, we will be taking a look at what's new and interesting in South Africa through the lens of Sandton and Johannesburg, where we have seen a number of announcements and developments over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully give you a first mover advantage just by taking a listen. Sitting back every single week. A very happy Freedom Day weekend across South Africa to you, as we mark 32 years since our first democratic elections back in 1994. I hope you've had a reflective and relaxing long weekend to go with it. I know, Vincenzo, you've had a good one so far, despite us being here to make sure everyone gets their weekly dose of the Sandton Times Hour, but we love doing this. We're here for you. There's no other reason. So thanks for being behind the mixing desk, Vincenzo, and let's take a look at what's coming up in the next hour. In a bit, we kick things off with a bit of motoring in our Sandton Drive feature as we take a look at the MG3 this week, so get ready for that. Then one of South Africa's most popular TV shows returns with all the bubbles and sparkles for a whole new generation of viewers. Can you guess what it is? Well, stick around. I'll be finding out a little bit more. As always, I then catch up with our regular entertainment commentator to take a look at the latest entertainment to watch for this week. And finally, I take a look at how South Africa is spending its money based on the latest spend trend data. Where is that money being spent? Stick around for this and so much more. As always, a phenomenal hour lined up for you, and we'd like to hear from you, so do get in touch if you are up for it. You can send through your questions, comments, and feedback either via email, editor@sandtontimes.co.za. Social media, you can connect on social media at Sandton Times, and then WhatsApp 084 Sandton, that's 084 726 3866. And we got a WhatsApp from Andre this week saying the Sandton Times Hour sounding good in its new home. So thanks, Andre. I think Andre's a regular listener, so it's good to hear from you again. And your message could also be on the show, so just make sure you use that WhatsApp number, 084 Sandton. And if you're not part of our podcast community, be sure to subscribe to the Sandton Times Hour on all major podcast platforms. Your favorite one, pick it, choose it, follow, click on the subscribe button, whatever it is, it's free, and you can catch up on previous interviews and all the chats right there.
Keep listening.
There's more to come on the Sandton Times Hour.
In the heart of Sandton in Johannesburg, Max Serviced Offices offers a smarter way of renting fully furnished offices with high-speed internet and professional meeting spaces all ready from day one. With flexible packages to suit startups, freelancers, and growing teams, Max makes it easy to scale your business without stress. And with no hidden fees, what you see is exactly what you get. The reviews say it all. Businesses trust Max to deliver quality, convenience, and results. Visit maxoffices.co.za.
The best of Sandton and beyond.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
It's not often that a small hatchback arrives with the kind of swagger that suggests it's about to shake up the entire segment. Or is it? The all-new MG3 hit our streets last year and seemed rather intent on doing exactly that. And fresh off MG Motors' rapid rise in South Africa, this third-generation Super Mini landed with bold design, clever tech, and a couple of bells and whistles to try and impress potential drivers. Now, on paper, a small car with big personality can sound like a bit of marketing fluff, but MG's resurgence locally has been nothing short of remarkable, with some good sales and a rapidly expanding dealer network, and with the MG3 joining the likes of the ZS, HS, and the rather exotic Cyberster, it's clear the brand is playing for keeps. So, is this the new benchmark for compact hatchbacks in South Africa, or simply a well-specced disruptor trying to punch above its weight? Well, to unpack it all, I'm joined by Sean Nurse. He's the motoring editor at AutoTrader South Africa, a man who's seen more cars come and go than most, and who'll help us to separate the clever engineering from the clever marketing. And Sean Nurse, welcome to Sandton Drive on the Sandton Times Hour.
Yeah, it's really good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Sean, you and I had a chance to take this car around the hinterlands of the Western Cape when they first introduced it. MG has had a pretty solid presence back in South Africa upon their return. I know they've been in the country before, and now under sort of a Chinese label have made a significant return. What was your take on the MG3 in terms of also adding to the credibility of the brand and their product?
MG3 is quite an interesting product. I've seen it perform very well in the Australian market. I've visited Australia twice in the past few years, and you kind of see them everywhere in Australia. So it's doing well in other right-hand markets. I believe it sells pretty well in the UK too. Obviously, MG is not really the British company it once was. It's now very much a Chinese organization with some British design. But the brand has come back into South Africa, I think, the right way. We're seeing very solid sales. The 3 secured about 200 units last month, which would obviously be March 2026, which is a pretty solid number when you consider hatchbacks are slightly declining in a market that is obsessed with crossovers and SUVs. And MG itself sells over 600 cars a month. So it's not a small brand. I don't think that's the kind of volume they want. They probably want over 1,000 a month so they can compete with Chery and GWM. But I think over 600 units a month is very good. And the 3 is going to be one of their volume drivers. I found the car to be very interesting because its model range encompasses quite a broad price range. So from sort of 290,000 to well over 400,000. So that puts it right in the thick of the action when it comes to where consumers are buying cars. When we see in our research at AutoTrader, this is the sort of meat and potatoes of the car industry. This is where everybody is shopping in terms of pricing. But interestingly, your entry-level MG3 goes up against the likes of a Toyota Starlet and a Suzuki Baleno, whereas the flagship hybrid version of the car steps up a little bit and kind of competes with your Volkswagen Polo and even some of your entry-level EVs like the BYD Dolphin Surf, the recently launched Geely E3, and then obviously the Dongfeng Box. So it's quite a broad model range. It's a funny name, I know. It's really weird. But it's quite a broad model range that MG's got going on here. So,
are you finding that in this segment there's a big expectation in terms of what this car needs to deliver on top of the price? Because with the entry of all these Chinese brands, they've really loaded these even entry-level cars with all kinds of specs. I mean, I was driving a pretty high-end German brand not too long ago and discovered they didn't have a mirror on the passenger seat side. And neither did they have some of the other features that you would almost consider a stock standard. That was almost like an added value feature. Whereas in a lot of the Chinese brands, a lot of these things are par for the course.
Yeah, so the Chinese have changed the segment in South Africa forever because the expectation from consumers is now that all of the cars have to have all of the features. So they have completely changed the narrative when it comes to what consumers expect in their products. And because the Chinese compete with each other so aggressively in terms of products, they're all trying to beat each other. There's over 50 OEMs in China in the automotive segment that are trying to compete for a piece of the pie. So if one person offers heated seats at a specific price, everybody has to do that, because if you don't offer it, you're dead in the water. So now we're sitting at a scenario where a legacy brand like Volkswagen will release a locally produced Polo Vivo. It's a fantastic story for South Africa because it obviously helps the country to have vehicles produced in South Africa. But when you look at some of the products that you can get an equivalent price from China, the specs are telling. You get a lot more car for your money when it comes to features. But I've found a lot of people, when shopping, they want every conceivable feature, but they don't necessarily use every conceivable feature in the car. So when you get the car, maybe a chilled glove box is the coolest thing ever, and you show all your mates and you tell them at the braai, but you don't actually use the chilled glove box ever. So I think we may get to a stage in the future where these brands consolidate all of these features into a specific set of, like a comfort package or something like that. The cars come with this because the market demands these features, and those other features like attention assist, which annoys South Africans to no end, maybe those will be removed from the cars. But at the moment, they're just throwing everything at the market, and they're like, you get everything in this car. And then South Africans love it because they get every conceivable feature.
Yeah, look, and to add to that, neither do most people have gloves. They need chilling when they drive their car, their MG. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting point. Sean, in terms of what's available in terms of the MG3 range, what are the different sort of variations that one can get, and what are we looking at pricing-wise?
So you start the range at about 290,000 Rand, and then you get a manual gearbox, 1.5 liter naturally aspirated engine. Move up the range if you want an auto, it's just over 300,000 Rand, and that's also a naturally aspirated engine. Move up again if you want all the bells and whistles, about 30,000 Rand. That's the same powertrain, but just with all the bells and whistles. And then if you want one tier above that, you can get the hybrid, which is 1.5 liter petrol with an electric motor. Provides quite a lot of efficiency, but in order to claw back that initial purchase price, you have to drive the hybrid quite a lot to justify the price premium over the standard petrol. But with the recent developments, global fuel prices, I envision a lot of people are going to be shopping for hybrids going forward. So the hybrid looks like a slightly better proposition than it did a year ago. So hybrid is probably where a lot of people are going to look. I think as a hatchback, it finds itself in that sort of 430,000 Rand price bracket. It finds itself competing with a lot of crossovers, particularly from other Chinese brands. I recently drove in a Motor C5 hybrid, which is available for a slightly more than that MG3 hybrid, but you get a bigger car and that command driving position that everybody speaks about that I don't truly understand, but that they all want in their cars. So the range is pretty solid. Like I said, encompasses a broad price spectrum, but I think a very good sort of range from entry level to flagship hybrid.
All right, well, go check it out, the MG3, an interesting drive. And Sean and I, we managed to give it a bit of a spin around the Western Cape, and we get to get some of the listeners' impressions on what their experiences were. And Sean Nurse, he's a motoring editor at AutoTrader South Africa. It's been so great to have you on the Sandton Drive on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you. It's been great.
Fantastic. Time for a quick break on the Sandton Times Hour on SAFM, and more right after this.
Winner of the 2025 Telkom Radio Awards, Best Talk Show.
This is the Sandton Times Hour.
After years off air, one of South Africa's most iconic lifestyle shows is making a highly anticipated return, and it's bringing a fresh perspective with it. Top Billing. Or is it Top Billing? The program that defined aspirational living for nearly 3 decades is back on screen from 30 April 2026, reclaiming its place as a window into the best of the good life. And from luxury homes and dream destinations to inspiring success stories and cultural moments, Top Billing built a legacy around celebrating South African excellence. And now, under the guidance of executive producers Patience Stevens and Bradley van den Berg, the show returns with a renewed energy, blending its signature elegance with a sharper, more contemporary edge. This new chapter promises a spotlight on a new generation of young, urban, and culturally connected South Africans, individuals shaping the future through creativity, innovation, and collaboration. It's a shift that keeps the DNA of the show intact while making it feel relevant to today's audiences. And joining me for a sneak peek at the return of Top Billing are executive producers Patience Stevens and Bradley van den Berg, and it's great to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction.
Yeah, I love that introduction. Thank you, Alexander.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on. And as we get straight into it, I mean, Top Billing is a household name for those who grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. Do you see this as a comeback season, or is this the beginning of a completely new era of Top Billing?
think it's a combination of both, because I think for the generation that remember top billing, it's bringing back what we all missed. And I think, with social media, the world has changed completely. And I think the need to bring back top billing was to have that national mouthpiece, that free to air kind of conversational piece. And then you turn to social media. But social media and top billing is the new generation. And that's what will bring a twist to top billing going forward.
Patience, you've been with the show since day one. And when I say day one, I mean day one, I think it's about 20 or 30 years ago, if I've got it right. How did this show originally even come about? How was this even a concept to start with?
Well, I had worked as sort of the producer on Video 2 and then Graffiti. And then I worked as an insert producer on a number of shows for SABC. And I thought I had the experience to put together a new show, which would be like on TV, but turning through the pages of a glossy magazine. I made my own little pilot on a VHS tape and delivered it. And SABC amazingly liked the idea. And they commissioned it. And that was our start. We started on a very small budget. And we used an SABC edit suite as our studio. And it was very cramped and we didn't have any space for backlighting. And it was Michelle Garforth and Neil McCarthy and myself and the cameraman and the sound guy in this tiny little edit suite trying to create magic. At first, used to do it in editing. And then we had the opportunity to film in a beautiful home. And we realized as we looked at everybody in this beautiful home, it looks 10 times better. We have opportunities for lighting. There's depth of field. Everything looks more interesting and more amazing. And that was then the idea happened of taking top billing into people's homes, not just keeping it in a little edit suite. Also, I realized, how we all like to look at the property magazines and see what's for sale and how people are living. And then that became the premise, because I realized it's not just me who likes doing that. Everybody likes doing that. And so top billing can become this beautiful window to another world of how other people live the best of the good life in beautiful homes, and show the presenters looking absolutely amazing in that setting at the same time.
And here we are, how many years later,
Yeah.
and it's still working. You developed I'd like to call a secret sauce that just hit the right chord and people just kept coming back for. How do you keep that secret sauce going whilst adjusting to a whole new audience that probably has a much shorter attention span, that is just overwhelmed by content on a daily basis? Because back then, television was probably one of the only few things that we had to entertain ourselves between a couple of magazines, newspapers, and radio shows.
I think that's a challenge of getting the viewer totally integrated in the show. One of our concepts is previously it used to be spot the top hat. So spot the top hat in the program and you can win a prize. Now what we want to be looking at is viewership parties. So share what you're doing as you're watching top billing and you could win a great prize, so that the people who are watching top billing are almost participating in the show, but on social media.
Social media gives us a new window. So, 7 years ago, if we think about it, there was no TikTok. TikTok has come within the last 7 years. I think we know that the audience watches TV with a dual screen, with their phones in their hand, which actually gives us this incredible power, because now when we do a travel trip, you're not only viewing the travel trip and getting excited, you say, wow, that looks amazing. Let me research it myself. So it sparks an idea. And that's what top billing is about. It's landing a whole lot of bucket lists, ideas, and it's for the viewer at home then to dream even bigger. So when social media works well, particularly within a lifestyle show like this, it can really, really work well. And I think maybe if you ask the difference, where's top billing now versus then, is let's make top billing achievable. So it's still aspirational, but actually for the first time we can touch it.
Now, tell me, what does the good life look like in 2026, and how has that evolved over the years as top billing has evolved?
Sure, that's an interesting question. So I think that a younger generation like to travel. and they want to do a lot of traveling and see exciting destinations. But I also think that what we're picking up on now is the people we have inspired, the viewers that we have inspired over the years, actually realizing their dreams and ambitions. And the first house on the first show is of a couple who grew up watching Top Billing in a township environment and are now living in one of the top estates in South Africa. And that's a real story. They were inspired by Top Billing to dream, to work hard, to achieve their dreams, and they did it. And there's the physical reality of their magnificent home and them with their daughters in that magnificent home. And that's incredibly satisfying to us as a production team, that we actually inspired people to go out and achieve their dreams.
I love that as well. I think that is a fantastic arc from a narrative perspective to see that sort of come full circle. And the top hat is definitely making a return as well.
Oh, yes, the top hat is busy making a return. We're working on that in the logo at the moment, and we're putting finishing touches on that and physically filming with that top hat this week to integrate that into the logo.
If you want to catch the new Top Billing, it kicks off on the 30th of April 2026 on SABC3. There's multiple repeats, and we'll put all of that up on the Sandton Times website, sandtontimes.co.za. And it's been an absolute pleasure being joined by the executive producers, Patience Stevens and Bradley van den Berg, to give us a little pre-taster of the good life.
Thank you very much for having us, and I'm looking forward to the viewers and the response and to see how well Top Billing goes forward.
Alex, thanks so much for allowing us to be part of your show. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to your listeners. It's a great honor and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Tremendous.
Rooted in Sandton, reaching across South Africa.
This is the Sandton Times Hour.
Heading into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leibner, and if there's anything that sounded interesting on the show but you didn't manage to get all the details, be sure to visit the show notes for this week's edition. You can go on to sandtontimes.co.za and get a detailed breakdown of everything we've discussed with some additional links, information, and so much more. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts at Sandton Times, and don't forget to use the WhatsApp number 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. That's the dedicated WhatsApp number for this show, and you can send through your voice notes, text messages, emojis, and so much more. Right, as we always do every single week, we catch up with Tat Wolfen to chat about all things entertainment. And I think the big one for this week, if not for this year, is the new Michael Jackson movie, Tat.
Hi, Alex. Yeah, it's going to be big at box office. I'm pretty sure of that. And normally, what one finds is if a movie is big on box office, that I tend not to like it. Years ago, finding that with one of the movie distributors, it was that Demi Moore movie, G.I. Jane. Do you remember it?
Yes, gosh, they're going back quite a few years.
Yeah, and that was one of the first previews I ever saw as a movie reviewer. And I came out of that movie and I said to her, I just hated that movie, and it did fantastically on circuit. So I said to her back then, this is the PR person, I said to her back then, you know what, I think you can use me as your lodestone, that if I hate a movie, it'll do well on circuit, and if I love a movie, it'll probably do poorly on circuit. And that tends to be what happens. So I think Michael is going to do well on circuit.
It's certainly going to be one of those movies that's going to get people to go to the movies who never go to the movies the whole year round. It just carries that kind of weight.
I think so. It certainly does. Yeah. It's like if you make a movie about, a famous disaster or earthquake or famous person, whatever, that tends to bring people into the cinema who don't make a habit of going to the movies.
Well, look, I mean, there was a big premiere for Michael in Johannesburg at the Mall of Africa, and then we had a chance to also watch this movie as part of the opening of the new IMAX laser in Rosebank.
It's the first IMAX laser in Gauteng, and there's a lot of buzz going on about it. People get very excited about laser, whereas actually all new projectors these days are coming out in laser. It's because for the cinemas, it means you're not replacing an expensive lamp every now and again, because the projection lamps are very expensive. So it's saving cinema management's money. And laser is also a very powerful projection system. And it actually is better for color integrity and contrast. Not that the average punter is going to notice it, but it does give you better color and contrast rendition. So all cinemas are going now with the new projectors, they are going the way of laser.
Okay.
And obviously IMAX is going to follow that trend as well.
So you had a chance to see the screen being installed because it was sort of a bit of a retrofit into the existing cinema complex structure. Give us a brief idea as to how easy or how difficult that was to retrofit an IMAX screen into a mall.
Yeah, they retrofitted Cine 1 at the Zone. So it all began one night at midnight, because what they had to do was they had to bring the screen through on a truck. Now, let me tell you, the journey of the screen is already a story, okay? Because it had to be shipped from Canada to Durban and then come up from Durban via truck to Ster-Kinekor's warehouses. And then on this particular night, they had to bring it by truck to the Zone. So obviously it had to be done at a time when there was like zero traffic on the roads. And this great big long flatbed truck arrived with this long wooden box on it. And then a crane arrives and they had to crane it off the truck onto the second story where the cinema is. And as fortune would have it, that cinema has an outside wall, okay, Cine 1. Mm-hmm. They had to even create a new exit door. And what they did then was they craned this enormous box, this long wooden box, push it through the exit door, and then have a whole bunch of people inside the theater then pull this box into the theater, which was a mission, was something to behold. And then comes another exciting part of this process. On the day that the screen got unfolded, which was a couple of days later, they had to open the box and then they have to unfurl the screen. So the screen is lying on top of these seats, and then they attach ropes to the things, because now you must know that the screen structure is this enormous metal structure. They have all these ladders and things where these guys have to then climb up the structure, which is 3 stories high, and then ropes are attached to the top of the screen, and the screen is pulled up. And eventually this thing is pulled up onto the big metal frame, and then from then as well, it's got to be equally tightened. So you need to appreciate it. Next time you go to an IMAX theater, you need to appreciate the hard work and the teams that go behind the scenes.
Incredible. Well, there you have it. Next time you look at a screen like that, you know what goes into it. And certainly, I think it's the kind of movie, Michael, that can only be seen on IMAX to give you that full concert experience. Tat, it's been good to chat again. We're going to do it all again next week.
I look forward to it, Alex.
Follow the Sandton Times on social media at Sandton Times.
Discovery Bank and Visa released the findings of Spend Trend 26 in Sandton this week, the 4th annual edition of their joint report on consumer spending behavior, looking at spend nationally as well as across 7 major South African cities. The report examined how much South African consumers spend, what they spend on, how they spend, and for the very first time, when they spend. I sat down with Hylton Kallner, he's the CEO of Discovery Bank, to get an overview of the report and some of the key findings.
So Spend Trend brings together data from Visa, and VisaNet in particular, and Discovery Bank at kind of a quantitative level, and we have about 12 million clients and credit cards that are included in the survey. It tracks from 2021 to 2025, and then we supplement that with a qualitative survey of 1,000 respondents earning over 100,000 Rand across South Africa, representing a whole range of age demographics and geographies, and the two together give us just an incredible insight into the trends around spending in South Africa. We think it's got wide application for financial services industry, for retailers, for regulators, and pretty much every single South African who wants to understand, what is kind of driving economic growth and the areas of our economy that are kind of contracting or expanding across South Africa. And we think that's kind of got really wide application.
What are some of the key things that stood out in this year's report? It's quite an extensive report that people can read in their own time, but there are a couple of major pillars that stood out.
Yeah, so I think the report itself goes into a lot of detail. At the highest level possible, the report tells us that over 2025 compared to the prior year, we saw we saw overall discretionary spend increase relative to inflation. And that's the first time that that's happened over the last few years, and it reflects, we think, just the kind of the oxygen and the injection into the economy that was provided by 4 successive rate cuts over the year in 2025. And so we've seen a return to growth in discretionary spend, but in a disciplined way. And that's really encouraging. So there are a number of other insights around the use of AI, around the use of areas of interesting innovations like prescribed weight loss drugs, in particular GLPs that we saw coming through. And then travel continues to be one of the key areas of spend, and that continues to increase post-COVID.
As the head of the bank, but also head of the healthcare side, how do you feel this data is going to help you make decisions for the entire business?
Well, one of the interesting insights that we saw coming through was the qualitative research around the use of prescription medication drugs, which kind of brings together all aspects of banking and health and making people healthier. We saw that 14% of respondents have at least one person in the household that are using a prescription medication weight loss drug. That is kind of just a really interesting insight. But what was really, I think, powerful is that it was associated with increased healthy food purchases, a reduction in alcohol purchases, and an overall reduction in groceries. So people kind of managing their diets and being able to actually cut back as a result of the drugs. So we see the kind of the potential in really holistic lifestyle behavior, increased physical activity, better nutrition, better diets, supported by prescription weight loss drugs where required, and all of that coming together is a really kind of good story around health in the long term.
That was Hylton Kallner, CEO of Discovery Bank, chatting about Spend Trend 26. Some other interesting bits from the report that I picked up, and it's a very long report. You can get it online. 40% of surveyed South Africans now use AI tools weekly to decide what to buy, where to buy it, or whether to buy it at all, rising to 50% among 18 to 30-year-olds. And among those using AI, 42% found a cheaper alternative, and 35% switched brands or retailers based on that information, and 35% avoided purchasing because of risk concerns. Then speaking to the online betting and online gambling sector that's been getting a lot of attention over the last couple of months in South Africa, the report says that 46% of those surveyed South Africans who bet say they are spending less than they were 12 months ago, while 24% they are spending more. 43% set a budget and stuck to it. 46% bet mostly for entertainment, and 44% said they only spend around major sporting events, and 7% have reduced other entertainment spend to fund betting. That brings our show to a close. Feel free to send through your questions or comments. If you want to get in touch, email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. Connect on social media @Sandton Times. Hop onto the website, sandtontimes.co.za. And don't forget to use the WhatsApp line, 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. For all your voice notes and text messages exclusive to this show. As always, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and join the growing digital community there. Thank you to all my guests who made time to be on the show this week, as well as the team behind the scenes making it all happen. And a very special thank you to you for listening. And God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
Connect with the Sandton Times.
Email editor@sandtontimes.co.za.